I'm gonna leave you in Barb's capable hands.
Linda has been working all day. Oh, I know what I'm going to do first. I'm going to talk to you about this. It's hard to see with this shot, but what I have here is our Brother BQ 3050, and for free motioning on a domestic machine, it's a wonderful machine because I've got like 11.5 inches of throat space. It's perfect to work with. And Linda said I had to give everybody machine envy. So I'm giving you machine envy. So I have thread in and I am going to thread my needle. Oh, that's so easy. I love that. Free motion quilting. So we've talked about thread, we've talked about batting, and what else we talked about setting up your machine properly. So right now I have my machine threaded and I'm just using an isocord because I know it's going to show up nicely on my quilt sandwich. So you have to think of free motion quilting as two separate things. Once you get all the techniques or the technology ready, the machine's ready, the thread's ready, and that sort of thing, now you have your quilt sandwich. It's been layered, it's ready to go, but you have to think in terms of learning how, and then you have to learn what. So the learning how is physically, how do we get the machine to stitch the way we want it to stitch? The learning what, the design aspect of what to quilt, where, how we want it to look, things like that. I think we're going to leave that for when we do our Dream Big Panel class. And we're going to talk in that class about, maybe 4 or 5 different ways of getting a design onto your quilt. But you have to think of free motion quilting a little bit like learning to write. If you remember back in elementary school when you were especially learning cursive, you had to trace over the design and it was really wobbly there and it didn't look very good, but then you practiced making the shapes, and it's all muscle memory. It's all, the shapes are easy. Everybody knows what a circle and a heart and straight lines look like. You know it in your head, but your hands, the muscles in your arms don't know how to make that shape easily on a piece of fabric with a sewing machine. So today we're just going to practice, and it doesn't matter whether you're really experienced with free motion quilting or not. I always start with a piece of fabric and I practice because that wakes up the muscles, wakes up the little brain cells that work the muscles, and it wakes up that foot-hand coordination. So here we go. I'm going to lower the presser foot. Thank you, machine. Yeah, talking too much. Lower my presser foot. And then I'm gonna drop my needle a couple times. Let's raise the needle. And I'm just gonna do this manually because I want to grab that bobbin thread. Whoop, there it is. Bring it to the top surface. So the first thing you want to do is practice making straight lines. We don't have any feed dogs going on here. So we just want to see how well we can make a straight line. And I'm using the foot pedal on the machine, and I want to stitch really slowly. Turn it up to top speed. I'm going to stitch like that. And then I'm going to turn it around and have a look at my stitches. Do I like that stitch length? Those are really tiny stitches. So I either have to move my fabric faster or press down less firmly until I get a nice even stitch length. So this is the first practice, is just making straight lines back and forth. And we're starting to train our feet and our hands to get those nice even stitches. And it's a really good help if you listen to your machine. Oop, we're hung up on something. Keep going. So that doesn't want to move. So I'm going to check. Perhaps I have a thread issue. And that feels like what the problem is. There we go. Yeah, we just had a little thread issue. Not a big deal. So I'm going to trim this. There we go. I'm going to start right on the edge. Lower my presser foot, and I'm holding the thread this time. So if I press faster, I have to move faster. I'm not looking for super straight lines. I'm just looking for nice even stitches. Once you've done a few back and forth, let's try going horizontally. Nice and even. So an even pressure on the foot pedal, an even speed on our fabric movement. Now at this point, I can turn this piece of fabric. There we go. So again, it's almost like learning to write all over again. In fact, when I teach the free motion or the long arm certification class, one of the first things I get people to do with that machine is write their name, because everybody can write their name. Not quite as easy on a domestic machine because we don't always write by moving the paper. So now what if I want to go really slow? I'm going around something very intricate. You can hear the difference in the machine. So again, more practice. Practice those straight lines. Once you can do straight lines, let's do some diagonals. So you're going to take your quilt sandwich like this, and you're going to fill a good section of it with straight lines. Now your body is starting to figure out how hard to push down and how fast to move your hands. You can see when I go faster, I get bigger stitches. So once you're happy, when you kind of like the feel of that, but the straight lines are kind of boring, now we can try some curves. So let's try making just some wavy lines. Now I can already see that my wavy lines, I'm moving this fabric way too fast for wavy lines, or I'm not pressing down hard enough. Let's speed up here. Now that's giving me a much nicer stitch length. What other curves can we make? Let's do some loops. And all of these simple basic shapes are great shapes to incorporate even into your quilt. So you can tell that I have a nice even speed on my presser foot. It's completely up to you whether you want to get an even speed going with your hands and then adjust your foot pressure to accommodate, or if you want to have an even speed on the machine and adjust your hands to accommodate. I kind of go halfway in between when I'm quilting. So we're just going to cut it off this way. Oh, that's faster. Faster means I can drive faster. So you can see what happens when you drive really fast. What you end up getting is weird little shapes because you can't keep up with how fast the machine is going. If it helps you, if your machine has a little slider that controls the speed, cut that down a little bit. So even if you press really hard, there's a top speed that machine will go. And we just make lots of loops. So now we're training our body to make those curvy loops. Now my machine just said my bobbin thread is almost empty. I'm going to have to talk to Gwen about that. So I'm going to wind us a little bobbin here. Woohoo! Now we're all set to go. And what I'm using is the C foot on the brother. It's just a little, it's also called a darning foot. It's a very small circular foot. It helps to hold the fabric down, but it doesn't get in the way of being able to see what you're doing. So we're just gonna now you're going, wait, you didn't bring up the bobbin thread. Yes, that's right. This particular machine, if you use the thread cutter, which I did, has no bobbin thread to grab to hold on to. It takes care of it on the underside. It's not the cleanest look. If you're working on a really good quilt, you still want to bring up your bobbin thread, but for starting close to the edge, it's not an issue. So, as I said, one of the first things I teach people to do is write their name. So, get yourself your nice even speed and practice your handwriting. And then practice echoing around any sort of shape you like. It doesn't matter what you decide to stitch. The very fact of you're moving the fabric, you're moving your hands, you're pressing with your foot, all of this helps to give your body the sense of what it can do. Now, when it comes to free motion quilting, I find people have a default. They like to make either round shapes or pointy shapes. And you can sometimes get an idea of what category you fall into by looking at some of your doodles that you've got on notebooks from high school and stuff, or anything that you play with when you got a pen in your hand. I like to make round shapes, round things, and I get along quite nicely. But just play, just drive the machine slow, faster, and start practicing the shapes. Start with the ones that you like making. And then progress to ones that you don't like making. Remember, as a practice piece, it doesn't matter what it looks like. So that's kind of your assignment, is get your machine out, get that scrap quilt sandwich, put in some contrasting threads so that you can actually see the stitches as you're stitching. And then just sit down and doodle, play, have fun. Stitches too big, press a little harder. Stitches too small, press less or move slower. You should have enough control on your machine. If you had to carefully stitch around a very delicate thing, you should be able to walk your machine one stitch at a time, really slowly. Because you've just spent 3 hours on that piece of machine embroidery, and you want to be able to quilt around it, but you don't want to make a mistake and stitch into it. So, nice talking to everybody. Remember to stay safe, stay calm, stay kind for everyone, and we will talk to you again next week. Take care, everyone.